Now, before we jump into the game, there are some small issues with Enderal VR that I'd like to go over. For starters, you always want to make sure that your headset and your controllers are powered on before you launch the game, or the game will just crash right back to the Windows desktop. You should also note that the cutscenes in Enderal VR do not work. You'll get audio with no video, you'll just see the Skyrim logo in the background. Luckily, this is not a big deal as there are only 3 cutscenes in the entire game, 2 of which are just the introduction videos. You can just watch these 3 videos on YouTube, or you can find all 3 videos in BINC format in the game folder that was generated by Wabbajack, and you can just play these BINC files in any media player of your choice, such as VLC. And you should also note that anytime you start a new saved game, any mods that you have enabled in Mod Organizer 2 are effectively baked into that saved game, and you can no longer disable any mods that you have active, as that could actually cause catastrophic problems with your save game file. The only exception to the rule is you can always enable and disable texture mods in the middle of a saved game, and it will never, cause any problems. And again, if you open up Mod Organizer 2, you'll see that the mods are categorized, and any mods that are listed as texture mods, you can always turn those on and off safely in the middle of a game. Now, when you wish to start a game, you're going to go hit Explore Enderal, and then you can select Yes. And now that we're in game, if you look down, one thing that you will see right off the bat is that we actually do not have a player body, and this is completely normal. You won't have an avatar until you complete the tutorial mission and run through the character creation wizard. Another thing that I would like to point out is every now and then, during some of the quest lines, you'll find that there are certain events that may not trigger properly. And if that happens, you can go ahead and fix events that don't trigger by pressing the Council button. And before you can access the Council, you do want to make sure that Enderal is active in the forefront in Windows. Then you can push tilde on your keyboard. And if you type in player.tai and hit enter, you may have to enter this once or twice, and that should allow events to trigger if they don't kick in when expected when you're playing through some of the quest lines. And finally, I'm gonna go up the hill here and just warn you of one final really nasty bug in Enderal VR, and it relates to talking to non-player characters during dialogue options. So if I walk over here to Daddy, and if we attempt to engage him in conversation.
Oh, hey there. I didn't see you coming. So, how did it go? Did you find it?
So you can see that we can exit dialogue in the middle of a conversation tree by pressing the grab button on our motion controller. Now there's a glitch where if you terminate dialogue while a character is talking to you, the game will often prevent you from re-entering the dialogue options. This will stop lock your game and prevent you from being able to continue. So the only real workaround is you just have to make sure that whatever button on your controller is set to exit dialogue, never push that button when a character is in the middle of a conversation with you when they're talking. And I would recommend that you save your game fairly often, so if you ever run into a problem where you lock your save game and can't continue, that you can reload and not have to replay through a long stretch of the game. So other than those issues, guys, I have not seen any other major problems with playing Enderal in VR. Now that we've gone through some of the little quirks with the game, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead here. And I'm going to show you some of the showcase mods that are included in this Wabbajack release. Alright guys, we have jumped ahead to Finn's camp, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some of the flagship mods that are included in this Wabbajack release. Now if you jump in the game and find that your height isn't correct, you can access the menu. You're going to want to select Magic, and if you select the EVRE calibration power, by executing this magic spell, it allows you to calibrate your height. I'm going to go ahead and hit headset height only, and now I'm calibrated for the appropriate player height. And once you do that, I'd also recommend turning that spell off so you're not constantly recalibrating the game all the time inadvertently. And there's a lot of really cool things we can do with the EVRE mod. So one thing that's really neat about it is it gives us weapon holsters. So we can actually, grab weapons right off of our body without having to use the menu system. Another fun thing is it makes it really easy to interact with, objects and placing objects in our inventory. So if I want to pick up an object and add something to my inventory, I can just reach out with my hands, considering that my hands are free. So first I'm going to need to make sure I don't have any weapons or spells equipped. So I'm going to go ahead and unequip my spells, and if I just reach out, say I want to pick up an item here on the table, I can just squeeze the triggers on my controller very naturally to pick it up, and if I place the item behind my back, I can just drop it in my inventory. I basically put it in my backpack. And another thing that's really cool about this release is we have the Higgs mod installed. So again, I can pick up objects with my hands thanks to the Higgs mod. Everything has physics, very similar to Half-Life Alyx. You can interact with items using gravity gloves. So if I want to pick up the canes on the table, I can just reach out my hand, and I can flick my wrist back while squeezing the triggers on my controller. And I can grab the canes just like I would an object in Half-Life Alyx using the gravity gloves, which is really, really cool. And again, I'll throw it, and everything has very realistic physics. Another thing that's really cool about the game with the EVRE mod is if we go ahead and if we raise our right hand over our head, the game has a selfie mode where we can actually see ourselves in third person. Now this may not be an important feature for VR, but it can be kind of fun, to see yourself in the third person for, taking photos, and sometimes it's neat just taking a selfie of yourself in the Enderal environment. Now you can raise your right hand again, and it will exit the selfie mode and return you to first person. Some additional mods that I have included are the scoped bow mod. So I can reach behind my back and just squeeze my triggers to grab a bow. Now I actually have a bow with a scope on it. You will have to find, the bows with the scopes in Enderal. Now I don't actually know if all of the Skyrim scoped bows are in the Enderal campaign. If not, I have provided council commands in the attached Readme file, which you'll find in the video link below, that gives you all the commands for spawning scoped bows into the game. Now you can, aim, very easily, using the scope, on our glass lens here. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up my crosshair on the scope with this bottle. And as you can see, it was right on. So again, scoped bows really make archery a lot of fun in VR. And when you're all done using the scoped bow, you can just reach behind your back with your hand and place it back behind you on your body. Also, if you want to reload Your arrows, again, you can just reach behind your back very naturally using the realistic archery mod. So you can reach behind your back, grab an arrow, you put it in the bow, and then when you're done, again, you can put your bow behind your back, press the trigger buttons on your motion controller, and now I will show you the weapon throw mod that is installed. I can grab a knife off my leg down here just by squeezing, my triggers when I reach down towards my blade, and I can throw the knife just by flinging my hand forward while releasing the triggers on my controller. Then if I squeeze the triggers again on my motion controller, I can retract the blade, and now it's back in my hand. Really, really cool. And again, I can reach down, squeeze the triggers on my motion controller again to holster the weapon, right on my leg, thanks to the EVRE mod. Some other mods that we have that are kind of fun are the Dragonborn Naturally Speaking mod. So I can walk over here to Finn, and when I talk to him,
here, take this. Truth be told, you don't look so healthy. Your eyes. Well, whatever.
What about my eyes?
There's something peculiar about you. I don't know how else to say it. I would examine you myself, but we don't have the right equipment with us. So if I were you, I'd ask a priest in Riverville to have a look at you.
So what's really cool there is I was able to just talk to him using my voice in real life. I didn't touch any, buttons on my motion controllers. I just, recited the dialogue, and the game picks up the speech recognition from my microphone, and it can be a little finicky every now and then if it doesn't quite recognize your speech. You can still use your controllers to select the dialogue options, but it can be kind of neat to just talk to the characters with your voice. Adds a lot, I find, with immersion, especially when playing the game in VR. I have also added flinching animations to the game using a mod that was patched using Nemesis. So if we go ahead and have a melee weapon equipped, if I walk up to Finn and strike poor Finn with my knife, he'll react with a flinching animation. So it's just kind of a neat little animation effect that gives you a little bit more immersion when playing the game in VR. So all the features that I've showed you guys all just work right out of the box. As soon as you jump into the game, you don't have to reconfigure any settings to make all this stuff work. I've gone ahead and pre-configured everything, so as soon as you jump into Enderal VR, you should be able to interact with the world, in a way that's extremely intuitive. There aren't too many settings that you really need to worry about adjusting once you're in game. However, there are two settings that you may optionally want to go ahead and change. I cannot pre-configure a few things in the game. There are a couple things that must be configured manually through the mod configuration menu. So if you go to the menu screen, you can just push, if you're using an Oculus headset, it's going to be the Y button on your controller. It's probably something else if you're using Knuckles controllers. But if you go to System, and then you select Mod Configuration, one mod that you may optionally wish to adjust is this RAS mod. This is a really cool mod that adds some really neat effects to the game during weather conditions. Now, by default, it will add a water droplet effect during rainstorms. So again, during heavy rainfall, you'll actually see what looks like little beads of water dripping down the camera lens. Now, I think it's a cool effect in VR, but if you don't like the water droplet effect, you can go ahead and you can turn it off right here. The only thing that I would advise definitely changing is you should reconfigure the Spell Wheel VR mod. This has to be configured manually in-game. You're going to want to go to Presets. I would recommend selecting Spell Sword, and this is going to load in a default preset where you can use the Spell Wheel mod to access not just your magic spells, but you'll be able to equip other items along with weapons using the Spell Wheel. And finally, under Advanced, I would go ahead and I would recommend changing the time scale to a really low number, something like, say, 5. And what this does is it's going to give you a really cool bullet time effect in combat, which I will go ahead and show you guys. And this is, I believe, the last thing that I'm going to show you here in game. So as you can see, everything pretty much works very intuitively. You should be able to have a really great VR experience just jumping in game without having to reconfigure anything in any of the menus. And I will go ahead and as we finish up this video, show you guys the slow motion effect by changing the spell wheel settings for the time scale. Alright, so it looks like there's some wolves up ahead. Now, as soon as we're in combat, see if I enter the spell wheel, we now are in a sort of bullet time mode. I feel kind of like I'm in Super Hot or Max Payne. And you can also see that I can access, my compass, my weapons, my spells, along with, health potions, all from the spell wheel mod, since we set it up as the spell sword preset. Well, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I think I'm almost dead here, and that's everything I wanted to show you in game. Alright, now that we've gone through how to set up Enderal in VR using Wabbajack, and we've gone through some of the basics of the game, one last thing you might be wondering is, how do we keep all of these mods that we have set up in Mod Organizer 2 fully up to date? And that's one thing that is really, really nice about using Wabbajack, is it makes it very simple to keep everything updated. If you go back to my GitHub page, and again, you can find the link to the Wabbajack file on GitHub in the video description below. I will always be keeping this Wabbajack file maintained so that it's linked to the most recent versions of all of the mods that I've included in my Wabbajack mod list. So if you want to update your mods, all you have to do is you can re-download my Wabbajack file. And once the Wabbajack file is done downloading, make sure that you have Mod Organizer closed, and then you just want to rerun the latest version of my Wabbajack file, which I will be updating on a routine basis. Then just make sure that your installation location is set to your game folder that you created at the beginning of this video tutorial. You can click the Run button. And Wabbajack will go ahead and it will automatically update all of your mods. Just be aware that if you have installed any mods on your own manually from, say, nexusmods.com, and if they were not originally in my Wabbajack mod list, updating the game from the Wabbajack file will remove any additional mods that you may have added on your own. So if you've added lots of additional mods, you may want to avoid updating using my Wabbajack file. And you'll find that running updates through Wabbajack typically are pretty quick, and it doesn't take nearly as long to do an update as it did to do the initial installation. One final thing you should know is that if you scroll to the very bottom of my mod list in Mod Organizer 2, these dynamic mods are actually very special. They don't work like a typical mod that you can just download from nexusmods.com. These mods actually have to be patched manually using a collection of tools that can be selected from this drop-down window. Now, I have already pre-configured all of these patches for you. They should just work. Again, they add some really cool features to the game in VR, including flinching animations when you strike a non-player character with a melee weapon, shimmering water effects, and they will also greatly increase the game's level of detail. However, if you add a bunch of additional mods to the game manually on your own, if the mods you add change the game's world space, they could prevent these patches from working correctly, in which case you will have to regenerate these patches on your own using these tools. Now, I'm not going to go through how to regenerate all of these patches in this video, but if you check my README in the video description below, I have step-by-step instructions on how you can use Nemesis, Synthesis, and Dindulad to regenerate all of these patches from scratch. So that's pretty much it, guys. I believe that's everything you really need to know to get this game up and running in Wabbajack. I hope you found this video tutorial helpful. I'd also like to just let you guys know in advance that I have not actually played through the entire game from start to finish using this Wabbajack release, so I have gone ahead and released this Wabbajack file as a release candidate. Hopefully it works great for you guys. If you run into any trouble with this Wabbajack release, or if you have any questions about the game in general, feel free to drop me a line in the comment section below.